Greetings. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks for being patient, just monitoring a few things on the stream, and I will certainly dig into that a little bit later. My name is Clay Smith. I will be hosting this discussion on live streaming, something that's very prevalent in our lives ever since the live industry kind of went south. Lots of musicians are feeling the pain, lots of various artists and performers are feeling it, and well, ever since the pandemic, live performance has been, it's been rough, it's been tough. It's kind of hard to dictate what a safe live performance space is and what it looks like. So lots of people have gone to the medium of live broadcast. And through the miracles of live new technology, almost about anybody can do it, which is just really amazing within itself. So yeah, tons of unemployed musicians and technicians just trying to make it work. There's tons of really great live streams out there. And then there are also tons of not really great live streams out there. And, you know, it's not a diss or anything like that. It's just, you know, with the medium just being at a flick of your thumb to move on, you know, it's got to be somewhat decent quality to, you know, attract and maintain an audience. If it doesn't look or sound right, I'm probably not going to tune in longer than 20 seconds, and that includes some of my favorite artists and performers. So, you know, it's well within your means under a certain budget to really stand out and make your broadcast, if not most professional, at least creative and engaging. And that's a little bit about what we're going to discuss today. We're going to hang out a little bit and make sure some more people show up. I've got Glitchy the cat right over here moderating the stream for me. So anything you say in the chat, I'll be able to take a look at. So yeah, not much is really being done in lots of states. Some markets are better than others. Some places are safer than perform in others. And if you're a resident of New Orleans like I am, it's especially tough. Lots and lots of our culture and economy really does center around music and live music especially. And so you can imagine the type of hit it's taken on us. And we're slowly phasing music back in, but it really doesn't work for a lot of people in a lot of places. So maybe, you know, despite when and if the music industry gets back to where it should and where we want it to be, I wouldn't be surprised if live broadcast is still integrated into that, just because lots of people might not feel comfortable or going, you know, safe going back out. I know that I'm in the number, and any time that I do for work, I kind of go overkill on the safety precautions and measures because I don't want to get anyone else sick. And so anyways, it's not so much my personal belief system as it's just hard, you know. So I'm here to help, man. We're all into this together. Fortunately, apart to be a really great community that knows that right off the gates, we're not new to challenges like of this magnitude, and so I'm here to help. You have any questions, please reach out. Phone number, text, anytime. If I can't get back to you that day or night, I will certainly get back to you that week, so just reach out. So yeah, if you are looking to get in the live broadcasting, there's tons and tons of ways to go about it. But unfortunately, it ain't cheap, man. It's not egregiously expensive thanks to where we are and our technological advances, but it's not necessarily a cheap hobby or career path. But that being said, there are ways to navigate that as cheap as you possibly can, and just gather resources, man. Spend when you don't have to. Borrow things if you can. I know that sounds ridiculous, but kind enough to have lots of friends who help me out, you know, in ways that I don't have it. So send emails. You know, you never know when you might be able to get on some sort of, you know, endorsement or anything like that, or you might be able to test out some things for somebody. So that's kind of helpful. I have a pretty expensive rig, but I gotta say I've saved money here and there when I can by buying smart and knowing when not to buy expensively. I mean, if you know me out there, you know that I'm not really fascinated with gear as a lot of people in my line of work. It's all just a means to an end. And so for me, I don't really like to spend when I don't have to. I prefer to take the experience and try to get the best out of what equipment I can, as opposed to throwing money at my problems. But don't get me wrong, there are tons and tons of instances in which you're going to have to throw money at your problem. Oh yeah, thanks. Good looking out. Should be a lot better. I'm gonna let you guys behind the curtain a little bit. I have a lavalier tucked behind my shirt, but I think it's getting a little rufflage. Should be a lot better for you guys. So yeah, dude, thanks a lot, Billy, for the tip. So this kind of goes back to the first thing I'll say about live broadcasting is that you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna fail a lot to get the results that you want to get. I still fail on a daily basis, and that Mike is a perfect example. So I think there's tons of opportunities to fail right before you get jobs where there might be some money involved. And a perfect avenue for learning and where it's a lot more forgiving is kind of where a lot of the streaming technology began, and it's playing video games and live streaming games on Twitch. There are, first and foremost, tons and tons of knowledge base with gamers and their streaming. So even getting to know a few of these streamers could really get you hip really quick. That's where the vast knowledge of where my skill set came from is before the pandemic hit and this became the in vogue thing, some homies of mine were, broadcasting games a couple years preview to this. So I got to take that knowledge paired up with my audio engineering and live sound experience to kind of get to where I am today. So man, if you're gonna make mistakes, which trust me you are, man, go out and play on Twitch and have fun with it. So you can really, learn what it takes to not spend a bunch of money and waste a lot of time. But learning is half the battle, and it's lots of fun. So yeah, check out Twitch. I guess we can kind of hop into it, man. First thing we're going to discuss is once you do get streaming and you kind of got your brain wrapped at that is like, how the hell do you get discovered? And I don't really have the easy answer for that. I can tell you what successful streamers will tell you. And I find that a lot of us streamers who don't get the views that we would like to do, we just don't take this advice because it's probably the hardest thing you'll do in live broadcasting, and that's actually getting on the social media platforms and editing your videos so they're consumable and getting out on Twitter. Yeah, Twitter. I'm not even on Twitter. Who's on Twitter, right? But apparently successful people are. People who get all the views in the universe for their content, they have a Twitter and they have an Instagram and they have a Facebook, and that's how you know and when and what's going on. And so there's kind of a formula that lots of successful streamers have created into where they kind of bounce around and they learn to monetize accordingly. So one of my favorite streamers that I follow suggests that you get an active Twitter account and an Instagram, and you use those as kind of advertisement to say, hey, I'm going live today. And then what you do is you go live in full on Twitch. And then once you've gone live on that, you edit your videos down to the best important parts. And then you put that on YouTube. So the videos are a little bit more consumable. Because some people don't want to sit there and watch you play Fortnite for 5 hours. They just want to get to the good bits. So if you do that way, it's the best way to monetize because there is some exclusivity that you have to have with live streaming if you're going to be involved with Twitch. Whereas you can also get money off YouTube by just using edited videos of those. So apparently that's how big badass celebrity streamers make tons of money. And I've utilized this to a certain degree, but haven't completely followed through. And that's probably, we do pretty well at The Nest, but not like some of these celebrity streamers. And so I wish I took my own advice, but if you're curious on how you get discovered, that's kind of the way. We're fortunate enough to get a lot of our views off the acts that we book. So we kind of piggyback off that. But if you're like a lone streamer or just a band, you're gonna wanna definitely get on the know-hows of how to use social media. And I know it sounds easy, but putting in the work is just something a lot of people either pay other people to do or they put a lot of work in themselves. So I highly recommend that workflow, you try it out. So yeah, Kat, moving on. I'm just going to take 1 second to check something out here. All right, looks like we're all go here. So our next topic of conversation, we're going to discuss the 4 tiers of live streaming, most of which are obtainable. The first one is pretty obvious. I think we've all either done this or seen this, and it's the basic going live on Facebook, and it utilizes Wi-Fi, and it's quite crappy, to be totally honest with you. It's not a diss on anybody, but it is just the most primitive way of live streaming. The sound quality is usually pretty terrible. You're pretty likely to drop your stream, and it's because you're utilizing Wi-Fi, and just the way Wi-Fi works, it sends information in packets. It's not streaming, and it's just not great. That being said, it's really, really fantastic that you could even do that. That technology has certainly come such a long way, and it's just really spectacular. But at the same time, by no means is it reliable or professional. It's just a lot of fun, no fun. So Wi-Fi just doesn't do it for streams, no matter how you slice it. The next tier, I would say that this is probably where you really dive in to getting your gear to work with software and getting it to talk to a server and then getting it broadcasted to everybody. Facebook Producer Mode is a great example of a browser interface. It will recognize video and audio input captures. So that's a really fantastic way to get things started. They're really advanced, and actually I have considered merging the third tier with this tier just to kind of see how reliable it is. I really like browser interfaces because they work pretty well. They tend to have the proprietary codecs with whatever platform you're working with, so they're really reliable. They're usually like a single cam, single microphone scenario, but I don't see why you couldn't hook up a switcher and a mixer to it, as long as they both see your audio input, video input capture. And this is where you get Ethernet involved for sure. Ethernet is just so reliable. It's probably the most important thing to live streaming outside of your GPU and your RAM and your computer, is that you have a really, really high upload speed, which can get kind of expensive, especially in the New Orleans area, where the internet's kind of half-half anyways. So my understanding is AT&T is both the most reliable and the most affordable, whereas Cox is twice as expensive and kind of spotty with their high-tiered fiber internet, if it is in fact fiber. The third tier is kind of where you really start playing with things like overlays, multicam switcher scenarios, professional audio rigs. This is the majority of how most concert venues have integrated their live streams, and it's pretty much the majority of what we're going to center our discussions around this tier right here. This is where you start utilizing software or hardware. For instance, OBS and vMix are really great software that I utilize. OBS is open source software, and it's pretty much what most everyone's using, because it's open source and free, and is just a really, really powerful tool with tons of resources and plugins available. So that's going to be the majority of what cats are using in 2020. However, there are others out there that are a little bit more, reliable. You have to pay a little bit for them, but they're worth every dollar. One being vMix, which I have started using in the last month and have absolutely fallen in love with. And we'll talk a lot about the benefits of using vMix a little bit later. Our fourth tier is dedicated hardware, and this is what you're going to catch in like news studios and television broadcast productions, where they're utilizing dedicated pieces of hardware to kind of throw out the middleman. For example, they have dedicated pieces of hardware that just does the broadcasting, dedicated pieces of hardware that does the video encoding. I don't have very much experience in this realm. This is a career that I'm hoping to build towards one day, but it also sounds very, very expensive. So that's kind of why we're in tier 3, utilizing as much free or cheap resources as possible. So I don't really have too much of a formal I don't have much experience in educating. So forgive me if anything I say is redundant or kind of a no-brainer. We just kind of have to go over it so everyone in the discussion kind of has an understanding. And if we see more interest, then I'll definitely go over more aspects of this more in detail. But these are kind of just broad strokes. So you're going to be hearing lots and lots of terms when people discuss broadcasting, video, professional audio. And so we'll just go over some key terms that you're going to be hearing and need to understand over your experience and course of experimenting in live broadcasting. The first is bitrate, and bitrate by definition is the numbers of bits per second that can be transmitted along an audio digital network. And lots of my mentors along the way, they're really big into water analogies, and I'm no different. I think it's a really brilliant way to express an idea. So for the sake of the conversation, we're going to call bitrate water. I'm a big fan of water and pipe scenarios. So bandwidth, it relates to your internet connection. It's basically the transmission capacity of a computer network or other telecommunication systems. So if the bit rate is water, then the bandwidth is the pipe, or more specifically, how big or small the pipe is. So we'll be talking about bit rate and bandwidth in relation to the quality of your stream and how much information is being sent out. So bitrate in a lot of these software programs like OBS is something that it's basically excuse me. Sorry about had to monitor something here. So you can basically express the bitrate that you want through software. And you can change that according to your bandwidth. There's a formula. You can find out how much bandwidth is and set the appropriate bit rate, so you're not dropping frames and all the information is coming out seamlessly as possible. The next term is gain structure, and it relates predominantly to audio. And it has to do with signal-to-noise ratio, which is basically the act of setting the gain for each amplification stage in a sound system to achieve a target system volume that minimizes noise and distortion. So basically, it's just tuning that preamp just right, where it's not too loud to be distorted, but not too quiet to where you're getting lots of noise floor. This is especially important in live broadcasting, whereas a live scenario, it can be a little forgiving, but because you're piping the audio straight in, when signal distorts, everyone's going to hear it. It's just going to not sound pleasant. So you're going to hear us referring to the words gain structure a lot when referring to pro audio. Next has to do with video. It's resolution, a term you might be familiar with. It's the physical size of the area where pictures and videos are displayed. It's also known as display size, and it's usually measured in pixels. You'll hear people refer to the resolution in 1080p or 720p, and that's exactly what they're talking about. That's measured in pixels. Capture card. Capture cards are what's used to integrate video cameras into a computer. It basically allows the cameras to talk to computers, and then the computers talks to a server, and that server broadcasts to the various platforms. There's various different capture cards on the market. Some are really expensive and very nice. For example, we are using a capture card to integrate one of my computers over here to run these slides. Using the Elgato HD capture card. It's really nice. I like it. It's the industry standard for gamers. It's really cool because it also has a through-out port, which allows me to take the output of the capture card and put it on a monitor so I can actually watch in tandem with capturing to a computer. And there's tons of capture cards, and you don't have to go out and buy an expensive $200 capture card like that. You could easily go out and buy a $15 capture card, and I gotta tell you, you usually get what you pay for. But this is really nice. for a $15 capture card. You can find this on Amazon. I think the best way to find it, the cheapest price, is at AliExpress, aliexpress.com. Man, I can barely tell the difference on this capture card. One of the throwbacks of this capture card, it doesn't have that 3-port I spoke of earlier, but still for $15, if you can find a way to view off what you're broadcasting to, not a bad deal. And there's things in between, you know. There's all kinds of cool capture cards on the Chinese market. This one's cool. It actually has a throughput. It has a USB 3-put in and out. Not as nice as the Elgato, but I can't really tell the difference, and I paid half the price for it. So, you know, like I said, all this gear is just a means to an end. So you don't have to have the biggest and nicest things. You just know how to make that cheap stuff do well and look good. So the next term is audio interface. It works very similar to a capture card, except it works with audio. And some video captures can actually send audio. We'll talk a little bit about that later. An audio interface is a device that gives you the ability to connect professional microphones, instruments, and other kinds of signals to a computer and output a variety of signals as well. So we use audio interfaces at the Nest to basically tape the mixed audio that we mix on the fly, and basically to embed that into our computers to send out to the servers to broadcast. There's a variety of them. Some of the best ones out there are made by Focusrite, M-Audio, PreSonus, Avid. I'm sure Neve makes a really badass audio interface out there. So yeah, man, there's a variety of them on the gamut. I don't know that there's any distinguishing difference in audio interfaces. I'm sure there is. I haven't really heard an audible difference from the variety of ones I hear. But yeah, I like PreSonus because they're local and your money's going to local dudes just like you and me. So yeah, you're gonna see me that I really love to endorse PreSonus Audio just because it's a local product and they work really, really great, and I can afford them. So the next term is headroom, and headroom is it refers to the amount by which the signal handling capabilities of an audio and video system exceed a designated nominal level. So headroom is basically like a little bit of room that you want to leave to where, you know, you're not totally hitting it with tons of gain, but you're not hitting it with too little so much that you're getting a massive amount of gain floor. And honestly, video headroom is a thing too. It basically goes back to the water analogy I was using earlier with bitrate versus bandwidth. You want to send as much water through the pipe as possible, but you want to leave a little bit of air so that water can flow through as quickly as possible. The next term is a GPU, also known as the graphic processing unit, and it's basically the main component in your computer that is doing the video encoding for your stream. So, you know, video comes into your computer and it needs to get changed to zeros and ones and spit out and back and forth. And that's a graphic processor that basically does that. And it takes on a huge load when using video. The GPU, by definition, accelerates applications run on the CPU by offloading some of the compute-intensive and time-consuming portions of the code. So basically, your GPU is helping out your CPU, and your CPU is just basically doing most of the work on your computer. And so they work in tandem. You're going to have a pretty decent GPU to live stream. We'll go just a little bit into what GPUs are out there. I'm not an expert on computer components, but I do know what flies as far as live streaming, so we'll talk a little bit about that. Our next term is the CPU. We talked a little bit about that just a moment ago, and it's basically the electronic circuitry within a computer that executes instructions that makes up a computer program. So yeah, basically, you move a mouse, you tell it to do something, you're basically talking to CPU, and it might take some of that load for heavier processing to your GPU, but basically, you also have a pretty decent CPU to do a stream as well, or just any computer applications in 2020, to be quite frank. You will need at least 32 megabytes of random access memory. The RAM allows data to be read or written in almost the same amount of time, irrespective of the physical location of data inside the memory. So you can get various amounts of RAM cards to put in your CPU or your computer on your motherboard, and this is something you can do yourself. So look into that. The RAM just works in tandem with the GPU and CPU. It basically
gets everything talking together. It's by the nature of random access memory. The video encoder. Video encoder converts analog and digital video to another digital video format to deliver to a decoder. There's going to be quite a bit of video encoding involved in your live stream. Another great example of that is if you're going to be running videos or even just image slides. I actually use two computers to do this. I use one computer just to play videos and images, and I throw that to a second computer that does just broadcasting. My whole gaming computer is simply dedicated to just broadcasting. Same thing with gameplay. If I'm going to do some high game level gameplay, I'm going to do the game playing off one computer. Then I'm going to send that through a capture card or a switcher to a computer that's just dedicated to streaming, because you really cannot handle too much more. So imagine, the amount of work that streaming does on your GPU, you're asking twice as much when you're also playing videos at the same time. And that's why a lot of times when you see people play videos or video games on the same computer that they're streaming from, it just doesn't look great. They're dropping frames, it's buffering, it's a nightmare. So you gotta have a computer dedicated to video processing if you're gonna stream like a real pro, unless your computer's just a super, super beast. But even still, probably wouldn't recommend it. It's just a better idea to have a computer dedicated to video encoder. And so that kind of gets back into tier 4, where there's dedicated piece of hardware for every little thing that you're doing, just to take the load off your streaming computer. So one thing that I haven't really discussed yet, and we'll go into the in and outs of how you get various cameras to talk to a switcher, and how you get the microphones integrated to a mixer, and how they all talk to your computer, and how you get that computer to talk to a piece of software, how that software talks to a piece, to a server, and that server gets out to everybody. And it's just it's a technical nightmare, especially if you're like a one-man team, which a lot of pandemic teams are, like 1 or 2 guys. We just have me and my partner Taylor at the Nest, and that's pretty much it. And so a lot of these jobs should be dedicated to one person. Each camera should have its own operator, and there should just be one guy moderating the stream while there's another person actually doing the stream, another person just doing audio. There should just be dedicated jobs, and it's just not that easy. And so I always try my best to sell this on my clients, and I just haven't gotten there yet, because I would say a good portion of them just they really shoot the idea. But the best way, the absolute best way to do a live stream is to not do it live. Do a simulated live stream. The thing about a live stream is they only don't know it's live unless you tell them. You're the producer, you're pulling the strings here. It's your job to create the show in a way that's tangible, to where it's cinematic. And the best live streams I have done haven't been live. I get to multi-track the audio. I get to take every single camera and edit it just the way I want it to, without having to call the switches on the fly, without having to mix the audio on the fly. Because you could go look at our archives, twitch.tv/the_nest54 is a really, really great archive of how we learned this stuff in real time. You watch the first few shows, and they didn't look or sound very great, and the overlays were whack, and it was a real education on how to do it right. And we're so blessed that our friends would allow us to use them as test subjects like that. But over the course, I learned how to do this stuff in ways that are just a lot more organized. And so the best way to do a live stream, I swear to you, I have no agenda to push, it's just the truth. The best way to do a live stream is to not do it live. You can mix all the audio, multi-track it, and then remix it and use all your fancy plugins and make sure it's just right. You can automate every single guitar solo. You can make sure the video cuts look exactly the way they need to look. You can do things like time lapses, and the best thing about it is you're not at mercy to the upload speed of where you're broadcasting, because that's one of the most important things to a broadcast, is that you have high upload speed. And like most of the places that people want me to go do their live streams, it's a great music venue or a really exotic location, but the upload speed is just terrible. And so I try as I might try to convince people to do it, you know, just a broadcast, and they just need the energy of it being on the fly, and it's a nightmare for a 1 or 2 man broadcast. So I can't sell that enough to you. So right now we'll go a little bit into detail about how you get from point A to point B to point Z. So we'll cut to the camera here. I'm going to get rid of the chat for just a second because none of you seem to have any questions anyways. But if you do have any questions, be sure to hit up the cat chat. Helen Gillet told me that chat is French for cat. And I didn't look it up, but I believe her. So anyways, and hell, we'll get rid of the cat too. And this is a great opportunity to be like, hey dude, you could get me there at the fundraiser. So you know, this camera over here either represents a single camera, or it could also represent multiple cameras patched into a switcher. But either way, they basically get patched into OBS via either the switcher or capture card, and then OBS will recognize your capture card that the camera is plugged into or the switcher that your multiple cameras are plugged into. And there's a little drop down menu I'll show you a little bit later, and basically recognizes your cameras or switcher. The mic is no different. Your microphone could be multiple microphones patched into a mixer, and then that mixer could either be patched into the switcher or it could be patched into its own individual audio interface that OBS reads. So same thing with a camera, you could have multiple microphones packed into a mixer. We'll call the mixer a switcher, you know, I mean, they're interchangeable in this regard. And then third is another computer like I talked about earlier. This third computer could be running videos if you wanted to integrate videos during your live stream. So basically these are your sources, and they integrate with OBS or other streaming software. And then once you get that optimized, and we'll go over optimizing your system here in a bit, they hit a streaming server, Twitch's server or Facebook server or YouTube server, and then it sends it to your audience here. And so basically this is the most primitive kind of graph that I could get that describes you how it works, and it really is this simple, at least on, you know, in principle. We'll get into a little bit about optimizing OBS here in a bit. So yeah, man, and we can just give you a little bit of a look on how these systems actually look and how they integrate with your computer. So I'm going to step over here for just a second. And yeah, if you look here on this channel right here, you'll see my last crap. I've got a little bit away from the source, but yeah, check 1, 2. Okay, there we go. And so basically, it comes here on channel 29, and then basically it's coming, it's integrating with my computer through this USB here, and that USB is going directly into my computer. Having use of a digital, excuse me, one moment, guys. So yeah, being able to utilize a digital mixer is really nice because it has the audio interface built in. This particular instance, this board also has multi-tracking available on board, so I can throw an SD card on and multi-track any audio that's going in or out of it, which is really, really convenient because it frees up that USB for me to use for the live stream as opposed to having it go to a DAW to multi-track, which is really super convenient. But you do not have to have a digital console per se to do a live stream multi-microphone scenario. We'll switch over here to my analog mixer, and we could talk a little bit about how you integrate those in a similar fashion. So yeah, I mean, same instance on an analog console.
Whereas the digital console has the interface built in, we simply utilize the red, we'll use this focus right here. We'll take the output of the analog console, patch it into the input of our interface, and that USB will work the exact same way. That USB will go into the computer, and the computer will recognize the interface in which the mixer is pumping signal into. I would say one of the flaws of that, using your analog mixer is, of course, the digital mixer has so many amazing effects built in. Compressors, reverbs, multi-band EQs, delays, and really my favorite thing about it is the routing capabilities. You can route tons and tons of mixes elsewhere. Let's say you have a big band, you could send up to 12 different mixes to 12 different spots on this digital console. So there's just tons of routing capabilities. I highly recommend a digital console, but you might not be privy to having one, so you can get the job done. Analog, it's very, very similar workflow. And so, I guess at this point, let's take a look at my little notes here. We'll talk a little bit about getting started. So, before we go into using software and such, just a couple of things you should know just about the nature of live streaming in general. I spoke a little bit about it earlier, and basically, you are at the mercy of your upload speed. So, before you do any live stream, the very first thing you should do is you should find a website that can test your stream speed, your upload speed specifically. Or I have an application on my computer, but you can also, there's tons of them browsers. This one's, I think, speedtest.net. And you basically just, they have an interface there. You just click it. The first thing it's going to tell you is your download speed, which is somewhat important, but not really that important to your live stream. Oh, excuse me. I'm feeling a little gassy. I need something to drink. So, download speed, we're not really too concerned with. The next speed is our upload speed, and that's huge. So, there's a formula to where you can take your upload speed and figure out your bit rate to where you can get the highest quality possible without losing frames. I haven't been monitoring my stream because I'm a very bad boy, but hopefully I haven't lost any. I haven't dropped any frames. I got some pretty good upload speed, so we should be looking pretty good. So cut back to my beautiful mug. So that's just one resource. The general rule of thumb. So it says here we get 23 megabits per second, which is pretty good. I mean, I feel like what I'm paying, I should be getting a lot more. This is like nowhere near what you're going to see on like a college campus or like a government facility. Like, man, I've been able to do some ghost gigs, man, and man, I did a school gig this year. They had 500 megabytes of upload speed, so we were just flying. So I was sending in like the highest resolution with the highest bit rate. That's pretty sweet. So there is a formula, and like for me, I just keep it real simple. It's like the rule of halves for me. So for example, if my upload speed is 23, then I'm just going to take half of that, and we'll just call that 12 to call it safe. And I'm not going to stream any higher than like 12 megabits per second. And that's fast. Like, for example, if I look over here, I'm streaming to Facebook in 1080p at 6 megabytes per second. So I still have a headroom of 6 more megabytes where I even get like what I call the danger zone. And yeah, I said 1080p in Facebook, and you guys probably haven't seen too many of those streams because most people are using OBS, but I'm actually streaming in vMix, which what I understand is they have Facebook's streaming codec, and they can actually stream to 1080p. So like, that's exclusive to vMix as far as I know. So that's why you're seeing my stream in 1080p at this quality. And until I came around to that, I was streaming in 720 like the rest of those losers. I'm just kidding. But it makes a huge difference, not only in video quality, but especially in audio quality. You'll see a huge, huge difference. Matter of fact, I'm over here looking at my stream right now just to take a look at what my stream looks like in 1080p.
just to see if it looks nice. And man, it's really nice in Facebook. So once again, a huge endorsement to vMix. So okay, dudes, we talked a little bit about. So there is a formula. I don't really recall what the formula is, but what I like to do is there's tons of online calculators if you're not sure or you're just kind of doubting yourself or it's like a really, really important gig and the rule of halves just is a little, just not safe enough for you. There's a website called bitratecalc.com and I'll be able to put that in the descriptions for you. So yeah, this is basically what it looks like. You basically can, so let's say that I want to stream in 720 by 1280 just to play it safe. And I want to do it at 60 frames per second. And I tell them that my upload speed is, what did we say? It was 23 earlier. And so yeah, this is going to give like a recommended bit rate. And then my maximum bit rate. So that was kind of about right with the rules of half, right? So 13. So it's saying, these are recommended for like really high quality video games. I like to probably say somewhere in the middle if I'm trying to be super safe. But, it's like I said, 6 is plenty. So we're killing it, we're crushing it. We've got plenty of video headroom. So this is like a really great resource to check out if you just want to, you should never risk it and try to send out more bit rate than your bandwidth can handle. This is definitely a great tool for calculating that. Looks like we got a little bit of time left on this discussion, so let me throw the cat back up just so I can kind of keep tabs on the chat. So yeah, let's go in a little bit to my OBS settings. Let me pull up OBS. I'm going to pull it up on a Mac just because that's probably what the majority of people are using. But I got to say, once you do get into like really professional live streaming, you're going to want to step up to Windows so you can build your own computer and customize it to your streaming needs. Yeah, well, that's what I mean, like, in the thousands, Billy. Like, for example, we'll pull up in a minute, Billy. Yeah, I guess I wasn't getting the chat off Restream. That's my bad. But anyways, we'll keep this party going. All right, guys, just hang tight. We'll pull up OBS, and we're just gonna just gonna go through the settings and kind of discuss how to optimize your system for live streaming. Okay, dudes. So here we are in OBS. I'm gonna get rid of the cat for a second. So in case you didn't know, this is OBS. And it organizes in scenes here. Each scene, you can set different settings and whatnot. This is a nice little peek behind the scenes. My little crap studio. This is, another great example of how I don't like to spend that much money. I was going to go buy a crazy expensive green screen set for $60, $90. And then I just figured I'd go to the dollar store and get like 99-cent green board. It works just fine. The hardest part is to get it to stay on your wall. I think I kind of got it rammed in with some tacks, so we're good to go, right? So we're going to go to a new scene. We'll call it scene 6, right? Because it's our 6th theme. And so under here, sources is where you would add your various inputs. And forgive me if any of this is redundant or you're familiar with it. Like once again, this is for the newbies. So video capture device. That's what we're having video set in. Let's see if I have any video captures hooked up to this computer. Yeah, I don't really have one. Yeah, I do. So here's our built-in camera. So hey, it's me again. That's how you get your video in the same way you'll get your audio in, input capture device. You could create one and just go through a list of various inputs that you have connected to your computer. That stuff's kind of basic. You can look up some various videos on how to further your inputs, but what we want to talk about is settings, optimizing your settings for OBS. So earlier, see my bit rate is 5756. That's pretty close to 6 megs. So thousands plus kilobytes, see, Billy. So you imagine that 1K is 1,000. This is 57, and that's when it gets in the megabytes. So, 5750 is actually only 57 megs. Or 5 megs, for that matter, excuse me. So when we went to the bitrate calculator earlier, we'll reference that again. Sorry, we got a little bit off task here. All right, so so it's telling me the number 13 here. That directly correlates with, this number. And now, mind you, most platforms, you're not going to be able to stream any higher than 6 megs anyways. So just imagine the decimal point being right there between the 7, if that makes it any better. Keyframe interval is usually 2. And that's something that's set amongst the actual platform themselves. CPU usage, if my computer will allow it, I will take this as low as it goes until OBS starts giving me hiccups. You're going to choose the main profile, and you could just leave that to none. Encoder, you have a choice of either using X264, which basically is just Apple codec, or video codec, or if you have a different, if you have an encoder dedicated on your computer that's really badass, use that. If you don't, or you're not sure, just stay with 264. Recording is kind of a different scenario. Now, recording, I would just max this stuff out, because with streams, you're only there's like a ceiling for how high you can actually stream. But with recording, you can stream much, much higher. So I do jack these things up. The only problem with jacking, the settings up is that it takes up much more space on your hard drive. But if you got plenty of space, man, I would jack that bit rate up so high. I'd jack that resolution all the way up, man, and you're just cruising. So this is like the very basics of that and how you set up OBS. So yeah, man. Shit. Well, dudes, looks like that's about all the time we have for today. We'll go back to a little bit of a discussion portion, a little bit of Q&A if you guys got it. Just sound off in the damn comments. I hope you guys enjoyed everything today. If you guys have more interest and you really dug what you see, let me know. And we can go into details about each specific department, audio, video. I could tell you a little bit about what products to buy on more of a budget. Matter of fact, we have a little bit of time left. So I can just show you guys. Hi, I'm back. Okay, it is. Just 1 second, guys. Hang in there. All right, cool. So if you were not trying to spend millions of bucks, there's like some kind of industry standards that which most streamers are using, and we will talk about baby's first webcam. This is the Logitech C20. Damn near everybody has these. They're really great. You probably could get one for about $100. They're beautiful. They integrate right with USB protocol. Patches right in. It should be recognized by all software right away. It has audio capture on it that's really not terrible if you're just trying to talk. Eventually, you're going to want to step it up your microphone game a little bit, but these are typically the industry standards on the most basic level. Some of the cons of this thing, it has a really tiny lens, so when you get into like low lighting scenarios or like high LED, high color LED with lots of contrast, this thing's not really gonna do well. It's gonna kind of shit the bed a little bit. So once you start getting into a higher level, and don't get me wrong, there's tons of people that run really, really great professional streams out of this, but the lighting situation has to kind of be on point for these to work well. Once you get into like the DSLR realm, I mean, I'm not really efficient audio on cameras, and I don't even know if I said the word right, but I have found that these Sony Alpha series cameras, specifically The 6000 variety is really nice. I really like the lens. You could find one used for about $300, and they have a micro HDMI out. You can get an adapter for that, and then that will run HDMI right into a capture card or switcher. And that's kind of where the attraction is for me, is using 1080p through HDMI. There's a variety of different adapters that you're gonna have to buy for your camera, depending on like the level of camera. If it's really pro, it's gonna go from micro to macro. And so there's adapters like this that are more cabled, and then there's these that are boxes. I prefer these because they take the strain off the cable and the tiny little insert on the camera. And these seem to break pretty quickly, but they're cheap as hell. So yeah, couple adapters, DSLR camera, and you are ready to go in HDMI, which integrates to a lot of video switchers, which is totally sick. I had a homie call me the other week, and he was doing a live stream, but he wasn't like really a live sound cat, and he really wanted to know about how getting the audio from, you know, to the mixer, but also getting it back to monitors. And I guess he didn't have like a full soundboard. And what homie ended up doing was actually dual miking each source, which is a lot of work and really just not really the way to do it professionally. If you're looking for cheap monitor solutions and you can send outputs, I highly recommend these dudes from Behringer. They're called PM1s, and I think there's a PM2. The PM1's cool because you don't even have to put a battery in it. I think it just runs off the signal that the audio is carrying. And it's nice. You could just put a pair of headphones in this and your musician is good to go. I actually have like 4 or 5 of these for when I do bigger bands. And it's nice. It's a great cheap solution where it's monitored in their head. You don't have to worry about some monitor. It's just another great way to save money. Once again, it's all just a means to an end. So when you're building this egregious live stream rig where there's tons of cables and tons of accessories to buy, you're going to want to go cheap as much as you can when it makes sense to. So we've shown you the little cool capture cards that are cheap. You might want to invest in some in-ear monitoring, especially if you're in a loud room or just a loud scenario. This is really helpful with monitoring your stream because you're going to have to monitor your stream to make it sound good, right? And then finally, the last little piece of lanyap I'll let you go with is probably the coolest thing in my live streaming rig currently. And it's an Xbox controller. I use the Xbox controller with vMix, and I'm sure you could do it with OBS, but they have shortcuts that you should definitely be utilizing when you're live streaming. If anything else, assigning shortcuts to your keyboard. But this is a fun way to, like, I've got buttons assigned to my Xbox to make the stream start, to make it stop recording, to make it start recording, to throw overlays on. Oh, my cat's missing. Meow. And yeah, so you can assign buttons to do commands on your stream, which is just tons and tons and tons of fun. So, we talked about a lot today, man. We talked about these key terms, and we'll just go over those key terms just one more time, man, just so like you can kind of, get out there and start using the terminology. You're going to want to learn about bitrate. You're going to want to learn about bandwidth, gain structure, that's huge in audio. Resolution, the display video size. Capture cards, find out about those. Get yourself a good audio interface. Learn about headroom, how to send learn not to send too little, but not too much. The GPU in your computer is a huge component in live streaming, as is your CPU and the RAM. And video encoding, that's what it's all about, baby. You're pulling the strings. You're the producer. You can do this. You can make it happen. You should strive for better live streams out there because people want to see you and they miss you and they love you. And so they deserve the best quality for sending that love out to you. My name's Clay Smith. I'm sending tons of love out to you, and that I hope you're doing well. I hope this was somewhat informative. Forgive me for being a little bit rambly. I'm no educator, but I'm here to share my knowledge with you. If you have any questions, please do reach out. Phone number, text, email me at cras.nola@gmail.com. If you got $1 to spare, you could send it my way. If not, man, don't go hungry, man. We really appreciate you tuning in. I would love to get better at teaching. I would love to do another one of these classes. I would love to dive deeper because we really just cracked the surface. But just remember, the most important thing to streaming is upload speed, making sure your bitrate is sent out according to your upload speed, a nice GPU with 32 megabits of RAM, and going live is lame. If you can record first and then simulate a live broadcast, you will forget all these headaches and things that wrap your brain around. They'll just go away if you're just broadcasting from home. But we don't always have that liberty. So get some practice in. Go out there and make mistakes, mess up, and get better. Hit me up with any questions. Much love to you guys. Ciao.
Thank you.